Good evening. This is Let's Talk About It.
That's funny.
And tonight's topic is about gun control. This will be inspired by the recent problem that happened. What?
Yeah.
This is what made it go off the video.
Oh.
Going live.
Sorry about that.
The video.
We are talking. This is
the video ruined the video.
This is in light of the possible AR-15 ban that'll be happening in Ohio.
Hopefully not.
Yes, I also hope. We all do quite hope that it's not going to happen.
Not at all.
Oh, well, my phone also buzzed, telling me that, oh man, let's talk about it. Gun control is.
My phone did
I
it.
agree, man. What a popular thing it seems. Like.
It does.
I really think people should tune into it.
Yeah.
You know, tell their friends about it.
You know, but
I'm definitely not about to tweet it out or anything, you know.
so, you know,
Only I had a Twitter, like Donald Trump.
Like Donald
I could
Trump.
post so many smart things. I aspire to be like him in my Twitter.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
I aspire to
sorry,
have a
Matthew.
Twitter someday.
Please do continue.
So we'll be talking about would gun control actually fix any problems, or would it just make
More.
things that basically make more problems, or just not change anything?
Right.
Now I am of the belief that it would not, if not, not change anything, if not make things worse.
Yes.
What do you think about this, Brother Noah?
Brother-in-law.
I see. That's not my title. Yes, you can call me that if you want to. I prefer just Noah, but whatever. No, I definitely agree that a ban on AR-15s would be bad. Because it's really not necessary. They aren't at all used for mass shootings statistically. I'm pretty sure the statistic is 9 out of 20 of the biggest mass shootings occurred with pistols. And so unless you're gonna ban every gun, it's not gonna help that much, because 9 out of 20 is a lot for the biggest for the biggest mass shootings in I'm not sure if it's the U.S. or history or in the world, but that's still a big deal
That is.
compared to just AR-15s or whatever.
Yeah.
So an AR-15 ban probably wouldn't do too much.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact of our right to have weapons, and the fact that AR-15s are a very good defense mechanism. And think even of the Texas church shooting. What happened there? It wasn't the cops or the government or anything like that came in with guns and stopped the guy. It was an armed Texan, because all those Texans have guns.
Texas is not a place I would like to invade.
True.
If it shows in Red Dawn, a lot of the states fell, but especially California right off the bat. But Texas,
Ooh.
by God, Texas was holding on its own.
Texas holds out strong.
I'd hate to
Either way.
see, I'd just hate to see if
All
anyone
those
tried
gun
to invade
owners.
Texas.
There's probably quite a few AR-15s out there.
Let's just remember the Alamo, everybody. Let's take a moment for the Alamo.
Moment of silence.
All right, that was a moment. I'd also like to just make a quick note of this is not scripted. This is all just us talking and voicing our opinions.
Wait, we're not supposed to be scripted?
Yeah, we're not supposed to script.
Whoops. No, not really. No, but the AR-15 ban would be a bad thing. It's a very good defense weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to elaborate a little more on that? You definitely know more about
So-
weapons than I do. I know, hey, it's a gun. It shoots.
So one reason I do believe, because a lot of more liberals and also conservatives do also believe in this, that you do not need an AR-15 to hunt or for home defense. When I find that quite a false statement. For instance, today, Jacob and I were out at our friend's buddy's house, just hanging out doing some stuff. And, two guys that they let hunt on their property came out of the woods, and they greeted us and we greeted them, and, they had AR-15s. We didn't feel intimidated. The AR-15 didn't kill us, obviously. But, we asked, like, oh, hey, what were you guys doing? And we were like, hey, did you guys find anything good out there? And like, oh, we were hunting for a coyote. And, I made a liberal joke saying, oh, man, liberals say you don't use an AR-15 for hunting. The reason they might use an AR-15, especially against a predator animal like a coyote, is, they're going to move faster, and to use a bolt-action rifle is putting yourself in harm. If they feel safer to have an AR-15 to use as a hunting weapon, then let them use it. And for a home defense situation, I know several females who have a hard time racking back the slide on their handguns. But if you give them an AR-15, they can easily load it and unload it.
Sorry.
And make sure it's fine. I'm not saying that, oh, hey, females are weak. I know men who can't do that either. It's just
no, right? You probably couldn't. I'd hurt
That's
myself.
right. Noah probably couldn't. He'd probably end up pinching his finger, and I'd have to bandage it. And
that would hurt.
You're
right.
This is the military. He'd be asking for a Purple Heart, but that's not the important part. It really just comes down to.
But I'm scared to know.
What,
the Purple Heart?
Yes.
It's an award given to people who are wounded on the battlefield.
Yes, thank you, Jacob.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might get it. Look how they give awards out nowadays.
Yeah.
But, and for a home defense situation,
just like on the playground, just ouchie, mommy, I got a boo boo.
Here's your award.
Within a home defense situation, you're going to have a lot more control over it and a lot easier time manipulating the weapon to also have a lot more controlled grouping and shooting. For if there are several armed people trying to break into your house, compared to a handgun, with a handgun, yes, you can still be accurate with a handgun, but not everybody's going to be on the range, practicing all the time to increase their chances of being a better shot with it, and to be a lot more accurate and be a lot more aware where their bullet's going. You're going to be a lot more accurate. Like if you go to any person who's never shot a gun before and give them an AR-15, in my belief, and within some things I've seen with my own eyes, I guess I don't really know how to word that better, of seeing some of my friends that have also gone out in the range who've never shot a gun before. They had a lot better groupings with a rifle than with a handgun. And it's not just because, AR master race, it's just simply because it's easier to use and to aim down the sights compared to a handgun. And I get that.
I mean, even think about the fact that hunters choose that over handguns. If you want to hunt something and you really want to get it first try, you want to use something like an AR-15. If someone's breaking into your home, you're not going to be like, I guess I'll take the cheap one. You want to have the best thing you can have. If the AR-15 is a good weapon and the best for home defense, or even for hunting, then you want that. And so, why would you not have that? Why would it be illegal to have that when it's not even, wouldn't be as effective for a lot of weapons for shootings and such, when handguns the most. You can conceal them more, a lot easier, and they're not super hard to use, but at the same time, if you know how to use them, you can do just as much damage, and they're smaller.
I'm gonna add this too. You guys are talking about like the ban on AR-15s.
Yes.
Are they planning if it's a ban, are they just gonna ban it by taking away everybody's? Or are they gonna ban it by not producing it?
Are they gonna grandfather them in? Yeah. That whole thing.
If I am honest, I am not sure what they are. All I've heard is through Fox News.
Fox News.
Is I've just heard that they're trying to ban the AR-15. I have not looked more into it. If I'm honest, I've looked more into how to fight the ban. But
because if they try to ban what's already out there, and if they forcibly try to,
they're gonna have a heck of a time
it's
trying to
gonna
collect all that.
Yeah, not everybody's just gonna let go of their guns. Like I know one guy. Matt knows a guy. He's probably not gonna let go of his AR-15. Like it's.
Come and take it.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Also,
he's probably not just gonna be like, here, take my AR-15.
I know one guy who owns. I think last time I checked, he has at least 17 different kinds of AR-15s. And it's just because he's gotten them at gun shows. So they've been passed down to him. They've been given to him by he just inherited some because his uncle died, and he inherited them. Sad for his loss, but he got more guns. And then to be like, oh yeah, hey, we're gonna take all those guns away from you. I highly doubt you're even going to get more than one.
Yeah.
If that even.
Yeah.
Also, the mass amount that are already, I don't know how many in circulation in Ohio that are at least registered, because we all know not every gun is registered in Ohio. Yes. While I'm going to talk about this, Jacob's going to find out how many that is. But to then try and go through and figure out where every person has an AR-15, then that's going to add a lot of stress in places that don't need the stress, especially police departments. The boys in blue don't need that kind of stress.
So after looking it up on the internet, I have found that it does have the grandfather clause on the weapons, so they would just be able to keep them.
Oh.
For the Ohio state law, at least, people would just be able to keep them. It just wouldn't be in production anymore. My question is, what does that help? Like, if people really believe that AR-15s are a super dangerous thing, what would that help? if all the ones that are in circulation are these super dangerous weapons, how is that going to help anything by just saying, if you have it, you can keep it? Like, there's not really much point in the law if it's just, hey, if you have it, you can keep it, but we're not making it anymore.
You know, that brings up a very, good solid point of if people already... Oh, yes, Jacob.
Okay, so they don't really know nobody really knows for sure, but it's estimated around 5 million to 10 million are in the United States, not just like
Ohio.
not in Ohio, but like in the United States, there are roughly somewhere between 5 million to 10 million AR-15s.
Well, that's still quite a bit.
That is quite a bit. And it's saying that there's roughly 300 million firearms owned in general America. So I mean, that's like if somebody's calling for an all-out gun ban, take away all guns. That's not
Good luck with that.
Have fun with Texas.
Yeah, have fun with Texas. Where they open carry, artillery pieces.
Yeah, like if you're planning on if you avidly believe that a full-out forcibly take people's guns from them, gun ban, it's not gonna work. There's gonna be a lot of bloodshed.
And it's not, because these people are, anti-government or anything or anti-law. It's their Second Amendment, and we're all here. We're all very pro Second Amendment, but we also do believe that there are some limitations with the Second Amendment. Like, for instance, you don't need to own a bazooka.
We always change Matt's mind about that one.
Listen, okay, for a while, I will admit, for a while, I did hold the belief of if you could afford it, and if you met certain requirements that we're not going to get into now, you should be allowed to own it. I've now thought about that a little more and realized that you really have no point in needing a bazooka. Now, if a company were to make a bazooka, for instance, reenactors for World War II,
I found the deer.
or
Got it.
What's the point of shooting this?
Now, for reenactors, if they were to figure out a way to reproduce firearms from, for instance, World War II, Vietnam, the Korean Wars, other wars that they reenact that have the bazooka in, obviously, and make it to where they can fire kind of like a blank, where you could see the whole, what it would look like if it was shot, minus the explosion. I could see that as, that'd be an okay thing, because it's not firing any kind of projectile.
It's not a weapon.
Now, one thing that I find to be a little kind of interesting is how, they're on this whole big ban about, well, you shouldn't be allowed to own a fully automatic capable weapon. I'm of the belief that you should be allowed to own a fully automatic capable weapon if you meet certain requirements. Not any person can just be like, oh yeah, I want to buy a fully automatic M16.
But what need would you have for usually I don't want to get into what need, but this is where I want to get, when people are like, what need do you need an AR-15 for? I'm not going to get into that one, but I believe that you should be able to have an AR-15. But what need would you have for a fully automatic weapon?
Well, okay.
Other than to just shoot it for fun.
See, I know sometimes even three Republicans disagree. Believe it or not, two
Republicans against one. So if we're not, so for instance, law enforcement agencies aren't going to use a fully automatic capable weapon because that would make their job a little bit harder of being able to know where all their bullets are going. So I'm going to just keep this on more of the average citizen. Now, the average citizen might want to, just go to the range and have, fun time with, fully automatic capable weapon. And I find
that's what I call a fun time.
Now, if they have met the requirements of, background checks and, a mental test and physical test to test, stress test to see what they would do in certain situations while having that kind of firearm, which, it might prove something, it might not. Like, for instance, the Las Vegas shooter, when he went through all the background checks, he went through everything, he went out with flying colors. He had no problems. And then just one day, he decided to do it. He purchased all those firearms legally.
But at the same time, there had been many calls about him from the House to the authorities. From the FBI had certain things about how he had said he was going to shoot up a school, and no one did anything about it. That just shows what.
We just lost Vegas video.
Oh.
Right.
We're talking about the Las Vegas shooting.
I missed that.
You're right about the Florida shooting.
But they did also have certain things about the Las Vegas.
Let's head back to the school shooter from the Florida in, what was it, Portland? Parkland. Sorry, excuse me. We'll get back to the Parkland shooter in a second. Let's keep on the Las Vegas shooter so we don't confuse our audience.
Yeah. No.
But so he went through it, and then he ended up, just doing that. Now, yes, you can't prevent all terrorist attacks or acts of terror, but I mean, just because, okay, for instance, the man in Columbus, when he had a car, he went to the Columbus State, attacked several people with it, and then got out of his car with a knife and started stabbing people. Then, thankfully, a Columbus, officer ended up shooting him. Did his job. He stopped a threat to protect more people. Now,
One of
there have been many accidents within cars that have killed many people, and there's also been use of cars in terror, acts of terror. Yet I don't see a certain kind of car ban. Now, yes, I see how that can be a very far-fetched idea.
Yeah.
Or even bringing up the whole idea of, well, the Boston Bombers used a slow cooker to help make a bomb. Why isn't there a slow cooker ban? It's because it's just simply, because of one person using it for one bad thing, why should we ban it? Well, the same can be said with a gun. It's just simply because, okay, look at, what was it, 5 million guns? Or was it 10 million guns in circulation?
It was 5 to 10.
5 to 10
AR-15s.
AR-15s alone are in circulation of the U.S. But most of the active shooter threats that have happened do not revolve around just the AR-15. So what about all the guns that did not involve in those shootings? So why should we ban them just because of the couple of bad apples? Like Noah said, a lot of more cases of shooters involve a handgun because it's easier to conceal.
Last time I heard it might have been 95. That could be far-fetched. I can check that.
All right, yeah.
That was Ethan's source.
But and shootings also happen with bolt-action rifles, shotguns. They don't just happen with AR-15s or the supposed assault rifle, which we will talk about what a real assault rifle is here in a bit. Or here, let me just pull up the correct definition of an assault rifle, because to many people's shock, AR does not stand for assault rifle.
What?
I didn't think that. I just didn't know what it stood for.
Yeah.
Just one of those things you don't know. Just like AK. I don't know what that means.
I forget what the A stands for, but I do believe the K stands for Kalashnikov. I can't remember his first name, because 47 was the year it was created.
Oh. Huh. Interesting.
But
You learn something new every day, kids.
That's interesting.
Is it?
What I just
I don't know
found
what you're
here
looking at.
on everytownresearch.org / gun violence by the numbers says that black men are 13 more times likely than white men to be shot and killed with guns. 62% of firearm deaths in the U.S. are suicides. So, I mean, that's a good reason to somewhat ban guns, I guess, if you were kind of
Well,
ban
that said that more black people are killed.
13 times.
Okay.
More likely. 13 times more
Well,
likely.
okay. I've seen a lot of stuff about this, and I definitely think one of the reasons is that in American history, because of racial discrimination, back in the day, black people mainly lived in the same type of areas in the lower class areas because of the fact that they were racially discriminated and couldn't get very good jobs or anything like that. And over the years, they've been kind of born into it. It's not that all black people are born in the ghetto or anything like that, but a lot of them are. It's just been like
well, I
that
wouldn't
over
say
the
a lot.
years. Well, I mean, a good amount. A lot more than white people in the ghetto. It's just a lot of them are born into it. And so that's part of the reason they're born into gang violence and that type of thing.
I would be
And so that's
careful with
definitely
going into
part of the
a
reason.
racial argument with gun control.
Right, no, I'm just saying that's that's definitely part of the reason that black people have more
Now, one thing.
deaths,
go ahead, sorry.
but there's more reasons, but I definitely think that's one of those. But what were you gonna say?
Now, along with gun control, one thing that I kind of find a little shocking with one thing that is legal is, there's this whole big thing about, we shouldn't make full automatic, firearms legal. I hold the belief that you should be allowed to buy them. Again, if you meet a lot of very strict requirements, and that in itself is a video for another time. But one thing that I find surprising that is legal to buy is a bump stock. Now, a bump stock, especially for an not an AR-15, for those who don't know what a bump stock is, it's an attachment that you can put on a rifle that when you pull the trigger, the recoil cycles it forward to then hit the trigger again, and it keeps repeating that process until you're out of ammunition. Therefore, it's kind of resembling what a fully automatic would do. So, it basically takes if I make oh, I just bought the semi-automatic rifle. I can basically turn it into a fully automatic weapon.
But why do you think that should be illegal?
Because
If you
okay,
think fully auto should be
So-
illegal.
because because you can just and purchase a bump stock. You don't. There's no really background checks on it. It's just you can purchase one as an attachment for your rifle. There's not really any background checks within it.
But if there were background checks, would you be okay with them?
Not necessarily, no. Because, for instance, with the AK-47, the bump stock actually increases your fire rate a lot faster. I'm not sure of the exact fire rate numbering, but for the fire rate for an AK-47 on full auto versus with a bump stock makes it shoot faster than it does on just regular full auto. Also, I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. If we were to ban any gun, I'm not understanding why an AR-15 is always the biggest gun to, oh, that's the one we should use. Yeah, that's the one we should ban instead of the AK-47.
Because
Well,
a lot of the last few shootings, and then or a lot of the last big shootings, according to what people are trying to say, are AR-15s. That's what they're.
and
Well-
also,
that's what they're getting at.
fully automatics are not by law completely illegal, but generally we have laws that make them illegal. It's just they haven't been very much enforced,
Mhm.
or for not only production, but not allowing them in households. There are a lot of laws for it. It's just they haven't been very much pushed, which definitely government's fault. Naturally, like a lot of things are.
Well, because, okay, so an AK-47 can withstand a lot more abuse than an AR can. They're also a lot easier to operate and maintain than an AR-15. For instance, that's why it's a big gun that's sold to third world countries, is because they're easy guns to operate, and you don't need to worry about cleaning them. You can throw it in mud for 2 weeks, pick it up, and then fire off an entire round, or an entire magazine, without any issues. You can get run over by a Humvee or a tank, and it's still going to operate. In all honesty, it's a very remarkable design of a rifle, but if a person would like to own an AK, I believe then they should be allowed to. But I just, within my opinion, if there were any gun to be, more on the focus of we should ban it, it would be an AK, because they're a lot easier to operate than an AR. For any simple person, it's just you pick it up, shoot it,
Get it?
and
I think there's a little bit too much focus as the left. A lot of times, every time something happens with guns, anytime there's a mass shooting or a school shooting, they always jump on the ban assault rifles or AR-15s and such every time, which of course to a certain point I understand because they're trying to stop this from happening again, but they also put a little bit too much emphasis on it. They don't look at other means of it. They think of it as hey, if we fix this, it'll fix the entire problem, which is of course not at all true.
I mean, if you,
It's not a single solution problem.
for instance, if you look at the whole problem with drugs, is you make drugs illegal. Well, how many people are still
Yes.
acquiring drugs?
I think there's definitely certain things that you can't just make illegal. Think of the alcohol prohibition in 1940, I believe.
It happened in the 30s.
In the
it was
30.
more than 30,
1930.
Late
Okay.
late 20s, I do believe. Let me
Yeah, it should
I'm-
check that.
Somewhere around that, in that century.
simply because so
But
what
it
it increased
increased drinking. Yes.
illegal drinking.
Yes, their goal was if we legalize it,
And violence.
it increased.
It actually
tried
created
it-
the mafia.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
pretty much. There's
That's
certain
Well,
things
that's
you
what
it
just
is,
can't
mafia.
you can't illegalize. It just won't help.
It happened
I-
between 1920 and 1933. Just
There.
for the
Okay.
people who are going to roast us in the comments for not knowing that right
What
off
was
the
that,
hand.
19th Amendment? Is that, yeah, it was the 19th Amendment.
Yes.
Because then it was ratified by the 21st, because
Yeah.
that's when you're old enough.
Right. That's
Thank
how-
you, history
I remember
teacher.
History. But I don't think that things like that. There's just certain things you can't outlaw and it'll help. I think alcohol is a terrible thing. That's not only my moral, but my religious and other views, just logical. I think alcohol is just wrong in many different ways. But at the same time, I don't think it should be illegal because it's not going to solve anything.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a wobbly stance on drugs. It's not super concrete. I haven't thought of it extremely through. But my biggest point on drugs is I don't think a a lot of them should be illegal because of the fact that it doesn't help much, and it also makes it a lot less safe for those people who are going to do it no matter what. And the people who aren't going to do it, even if it's legal, they're probably not going to do it anyway. I think it would be a lot better if we had like facilities that had those available and regulated them. That way we could regulate them, get tax on them, and things like that.
Okay, you bring up an interesting point with the tax, because I know many people would be very against there being a tax on those drugs, which, in my opinion, I'm on support of there being a tax.
Yeah, I mean,
because that would help a lot of problems, especially, for instance, in Ohio, where potholes and road construction is an everyday thing.
Yeah, but they if they really wanted it, they'll pay for it, especially if it's safer.
Or they will find it a more illegal way.
Yeah.
If it's cheaper.
But at the same time, for the most part, you will be able to get it from these if those pharmacies are set up.
Well, see, the thing,
you'll be able to get them a lot. You'll be able to get them a lot easier, and they'll probably go to that, and it'll also decrease the illegal activity.
Well, see, you say that though, but when people want it bad enough and they don't have the money, like you see that a lot, people will start stealing for drugs. They'll start stealing money from their parents.
And they'll end up getting killed because of it, because they'll try and just steal the drug in general.
Well, see what happens if the government starts regulating it. I'm not saying that that drugs shouldn't drugs should be legal. I don't know. I'm trying to say that, but but if we were to kind of legalize it and regulate it, what would happen is dealers would drop their prices, so people would come to them instead of going to the government.
Right. I don't think the government.
People won't think safety first. They think I don't have the money to go to the government.
No, I don't think it would be. My goal isn't to make it very expensive. It's if it was available and it was there, that way people could get it there. I think it would decrease. Of course, it wouldn't make it perfect. There'd still be illegal activity no matter what you do. But just like the Prohibition Act and what that happened afterwards, they were taxing alcohol in order to make a deterrent for people. And a lot of people, or a majority of people, when they want drugs, or back then, whenever the alcohol prohibition was going on, if they want alcohol, when it was legal, they just got the alcohol. Whenever it was illegal, they still want the alcohol, and they're like, okay, well, I can't get it legally, so I guess I'm going to get it illegally. It wasn't, a lot of them would have the money, it's just, it was literally the only way. So what I'm saying is not that it's going to solve everything, but it would definitely help a lot, because a lot of the people aren't looking to just get it for cheap. A lot of them, of course, they want it cheaper, but at the same time, a lot of people I really think would put that into consideration, even though it's a little bit more expensive. I definitely don't think drug addicts are best with their money,
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that would help.
Well, see.
But that's just. But that's a video for another day.
That drug legalization is a video for another time.
Yes, definitely. But that type of thing is what we're talking about when we're talking about guns. There's certain things you can't legalize to help. There's definitely. It's not going to be perfect, and we have to think of other solutions for it than just making it legal and just being like, okay, good, we're done. We have to think of other solutions. We have to think of how we're going to regulate it and such. Just like with how we do with alcohol, just like how in what I was proposing with drugs, you would have to regulate it in one way or another. And that's definitely something we need to think about, but banning it is not going to help. I really don't think so. Because those people that want to protect their homes from people who have guns that can catch them by surprise, or people that get guns illegally to break in people's houses, if you're doing illegal activity, there's people who have better guns, that have big old guns.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to protect yourself.
Yeah, banning
and there'll still be a lot of people that are good, upstanding citizens, but they'll think, what's more important, being legal or the protection of my family? And I think that'll really increase illegal activity in America if you were banning a lot of guns, because a lot of people use guns to protect their family. Not just to, they're not cold-hearted like, oh man, I can't wait for someone to break into my house so I can shoot them in the face. A lot of gun protection and stopping burglaries just happen with having a shotgun and pumping it back.
Yeah.
Burglars hear that and they're like, oh no, that is not good.
Yeah.
And
Now,
so
go ahead.
just having that would help so much more than just a little pistol going. Just go back a little.
One also point that I Okay, so within gun control, you also have to look at, age you can buy guns. Anyone under the age of 21 cannot legally buy a handgun, but they can buy a long gun. Now, I know that can start up quite a bit of controversy of, well, no, they should, no matter what, have to be 21. I'm of the belief, my personal belief is, if you are to buy a carbine or long gun at the age of 18, it can only be of like a 22 caliber, and even possibly at a 9mm caliber.
Right.
I might even just stick to the belief of, let's just stay with the 22. Now, the reason why I pick, you're only allowed to buy that, not just to be like, oh yeah, I can buy, a 12-gauge shotgun, or, oh, I can buy an AR-15, oh yeah, that's good, but, problem is at the age of 18, you don't necessarily need it yet.
Yeah. Most people, I know there's a select few, but most people are still with their parents at 18 or heading off to college at 18. Most people aren't on their own out hunting. I mean, obviously there are some are, they don't go to college, they just leave their parents right away, head out to the woods, those kind of, I don't know, stuff like that. But a lot of people, I think you can easily hunt with what you said, 22, right?
Well, it depends on what you'd be hunting, because if you're hunting, for instance, a deer or a buck, you're going to try and use a 22 on that. I hope you have a 22 AR and that you are pumping the entire magazine into it. Yeah. And when you do that, here's the thing with the 22. It can be a very deadly round, which a lot of people go, oh, a 22, ha, ha, ha. Well, here's the problem, though, is if a 22 bullet hits you, it's going to go in, it's not going to go out. It's not going to just go right through you. It's going to go into you, and it's going to bounce around. You can get shot in the chest, and it might end up in your foot, which that means it can go bounce around and, hurt a lot of things and possibly kill you, which, so if you're hunting, that's going to really kind of ruin game, especially if you're hunting for the meat for your family. Now, yes, some people can bring up the point, well, if you're, 18, yes, if you, at 18, you could be able to, own a long gun of, a higher caliber. Like if it's, passed down your family, like, oh, you're 18 now, here's the family, hunting rifle.
How does that work with people using guns? Because I know kids even from my church that go hunting a lot. How does it work with using other people's guns? Like, how does legalization with that work? When you're allowed to use a gun that is just when you're on your property or whatever? How does it exactly work?
With hunting, you either are hunting on your own private property, or you ask a person who owns quite a bit of land, be like, hey, would it be okay?
But how does, how do gun handling with kids under 18?
Okay, well, so for instance, I could take you to the range, and we could go fire some rounds at the range, if you're using my gun. That's legal, because I'm giving you permission to use my weapon. There is no really age of when you're allowed to shoot, and in my opinion, I'm in full support of teaching your 7-year-old how to fire a rifle.
If they're strong enough, that they're...
Well, I'm not saying, here, give them a 12-gauge shotgun, or here, give them a full-size AR. I mean, like, start them off with a 22.
But start them so they can be better at it when they grow up. That's fair.
I hope that people are, have enough common sense to be like, okay, we're going to start off with this fake thing, we're going to teach you how to get used to it, and then we're going to give you the actual plan.
All right.
Don't just jump and give them the gun.
Yeah,
all right, Timmy.
Yeah, all right, Timmy.
Okay, for instance, if you... Also, what it all comes down to is how responsible a parent believes their child is. If they think they'll be responsible enough to where, like you say, they're 7-year-old. And yes, a 7-year-old might not be as responsible, but are they going to be responsible with a gun? In my opinion, you should, children shouldn't be afraid of guns. They should know that if they find one, out in public, because I remember when I went to Safety Town, it was like, if you find a gun in public, go tell your parent or tell a police officer. Well, I always find a little outrageous is, who's just leaving their guns around, is what I always thought. Was, who's just leaving their guns around? And, you should still, you go and find someone and tell them, don't pick it up and play with it, because that's how problems occur.
That's what I always did. That's why.
But
brain damage.
I'm going to say. But with, if you want to go and, take, your 12-year-old or your 7-year-old to the range, on a private day, or even just, out, if you live out in the country, out in the backyard, set up some cans with the 22, let them shoot. It makes it to where they're not afraid of a gun, and they would know how to better respect the weapon. They learn, if you can teach them, good gun discipline from finger off the trigger, don't keep it loaded if you're not shooting, and, always keeping the safety on if you're not going to be shooting. If you teach them good gun control, or not gun control, but gun safety, at a younger age, it'll more stick with them later on.
I think that's a very smart idea, especially with the fact of kids getting a hold of their parents' guns and hurting either themselves or someone else with it. That's because they don't understand it, and also the fact they're young. If you teach your kid that it's a very dangerous weapon and that it's only around,
but not to be afraid of it.
not to be afraid of it,
Yes.
but only like around. But you can teach them how to be safe with it, or at least teach them more like how when you're allowed to use it, not just being like, oh, it's my gun, and it's like this thing you don't talk about. It's like Voldemort. It's just don't say the name. It's a gun. Then the kid. That's like telling a kid, hey, don't take that pop. Kid's probably gonna do it. That's just how kids work.
Okay, Matt, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Is it required by law for you to store your weapon in something in your home? Is that required?
Within
like, are you required to like keep it in like a safe or like away from like children, basically?
what I do know, for instance, with transporting a gun, it has to be within a gun bag.
Okay, well, like,
And
in your home,
within your home,
like, is it required by law for you to keep it somewhere like locked up?
No, I don't think so.
to my knowledge, I am double checking now because I do not want to say one thing.
Because I don't want to get into this. I don't want to get into this topic if I'm
do
wrong.
not think you need to. 'Cause I know a lot of people that just put them in their drawers.
Yeah.
My parents included.
I'm just saying, like, you know, out of reach, like, not just out in the open. I'm thinking, like, that's more what I'm saying. Not exactly locked up, but not in the open.
Right, but I don't think there's any legalization. I think it's just a common sense thing.
Okay, so there really is no law in state saying like you have to keep it in, you have to keep it in a gun safe or something.
Yeah.
No, but it's kind of like common
Yeah.
common knowledge to where if you have children, you're gonna want to keep it more in
Yeah.
places where they can't get to it.
Yeah.
And maybe okay, so then there comes up the question of, well, should you then tell your children where the gun is? So that way then if they're just poking around the house and they find it, they're like, whoa, cool, and then playing with it. But then there's also the idea of, well, then if they're home alone with their buddies, they're gonna be like, oh, you want to see a gun, and then pull it out.
Well, if you're
I
leaving
think
them home
you
alone with your buddies, I feel like they're at that point they should be old enough to know not to go playing with them.
He's got a point there.
See, because like at that point they should be
If
13,
your
14
kid is
years
home
old.
alone, he should.
Yeah, and at that point that's when you should be able to tell them the combination. Say, if you ever need it, it's right here. Not, I feel like if they're 6, 7 years old, don't tell them the combination.
And don't leave him home alone.
Yeah, don't leave them home alone when they're 6, 7 years old.
But it should
yeah.
definitely be in a safe, because
It
if it's
should
in a
definitely be in
safe,
a
it
safe.
doesn't matter if you
Yeah.
tell them or
Because
not.
like I remember last year we were having a debate about gun control, and this girl was like, children are killing themselves every single day with guns and with their parents' guns. And I'm thinking,
Sounds like a parent
and
problem.
I'm like,
Yeah.
all I was thinking was like, I wasn't sure. Like, isn't there a law saying that you lock it up? I wasn't sure
Well-
because I wasn't really super like.
He wasn't
I was super
educated.
educated. Yeah.
Here's one issue with that though, is where some people, they keep, yes, like how Noah said, his parents keep their guns just in drawers, for instance, because if for instance, they hear something in the middle of the night, if someone breaking into their house, they want to have quick access to their weapon.
They don't want to walk
where-
up to their closet, open
Yeah,
the
they
door, go
don't-
8, 9, 4, 6, 8, 9, 4,
they don't want to
3.
go into a safe.
Found
which,
it. Got it. Turn the
Now, yes,
huge
if
crank.
you are owning
Turn the crank. Strong.
now if you are okay,
Okay.
if you are owning multiple firearms, I do believe that you should invest in some kind of protective
Yeah.
storage. Also, so then if you're not home and someone breaks into your house, they can't then just steal your firearms, because then
Yeah.
guess what? Not only do you already need to file a police report because someone broke into your house, but then you also need to fill out more reports about each of the guns, which then, what happens if your gun is then used in a crime? Not-
Yeah.
Then,
Is that done bad for you?
yes. So if you're owning multiple guns, especially long guns, you should keep them within like a safe or something.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that you might not have the money for a safe, and you might just wrap it up in a towel and put it under your bed. And I get that.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the money for, or they might be like, well, I only have the one gun. Why should I buy, a safe? Or
Well,
I
you
only
can
have two
just buy, like,
guns.
a little baby safe,
But
baby
one
safe
thing,
doesn't sound like the greatest thing for a gun, but you know what I mean. Like,
one
little
thing
baby
you
one.
might want to invest in though is they do make these called trigger locks, where it's a lock that goes over the trigger. So basically, you can leave it out, but without the combination or without the key, you can't take it out to then fire. Use the firearm. And I've seen that as it's a cost efficient way if you don't want to invest in so much, but you want to have your gun readily available. It's boom, you have that right there. There's also another system of where I've seen hidden mirrors where if you put some magnets on a mirror, you can slide over. Boom, little gun room. it's really just a bunch of gun closets. Or there's the shelving units that I find.
like the secret agent stuff.
Yeah, one thing I find very cool and neat is there are the shelving units, which I'm not sure of the company. I don't know if Jacob, if you could search gun hidden gun shelves.
Magic Wizard style.
Because
I think I know what you're talking about, though.
yeah, there's this company that makes them, and it's where you can just have them kind of wherever you want in your house. They look like a normal shelf that you'd use for just decoration, but if you put these kind of like magnet locks, you can't just put any magnet. It's a certain kind of magnet that you put onto them, and you click up on it and it pops down and it's holding certain degrees of weapons.
I found one called covert cabinets, hidden gun shelves.
Yeah, covert cabinets.
There's also tactical walls. That was all. I just clicked on hidden gun shelves here, but covert cabinets.
Now, we are not sponsored by Covert Cabinets by any means. It's just it is.
Not by HP.
Covert Cabinets is actually
HP,
the company that I was talking about. It just happened to be the reason that it was the company that I knew what they did. Now, yes, they are over $100 of $140 to $130 to $115. But one thing you can do then is they're basically hidden in plain sight, and then it kind of gives, it's just a quick unlock feature to where I don't necessarily need a combination, but I do need to know where the unlocking mechanism is.
The covert cabinets I just saw on this website, they have concealed gun cabinet, which is like a nice padding made that's kind of like formed to your gun that flips down. There's also they have document safe drawer and hidden jewelry drawer. In the hidden jewelry drawer, or you can put like your gun and then jewelry and stuff like that, and those
Put
open
your secret
up like
notes
a
to
drawer.
your Romeo.
And same with the document safe storage. That just
For when your wife is cheating on you and she can just stuff her
I wouldn't know,
lovey in.
actually.
Yeah. Well,
Never happened.
I hate when that happens. Though.
I hate
But-
it every time.
They make let's see,
the reason some people buy a gun though for home defense is so they can have it readily available and that they don't have to go through a safe. So,
yeah.
but then when you have children around, that makes it kind of harsh because then if you're leaving them alone, and where you find it's where should they know about the gun so that way then if they're poking around they find it, they're not like, oh well, cool. It's like, well, I know it's there, and then if they ever need to use it, it's there. Now I know within traveling with a firearm you need to have it within a bag, or you have to have it disassembled, to where you couldn't just like pick it up and fire.
Places.
Yes, and that's another point that I was just about to get to is you cannot have it loaded. And while it's being transported, you have to have the mag out of the gun and the ammunition stored in a separate container. It cannot be stored within the same bag.
Now, I have a question for you guys. Concealed carry in schools and airports. What do you think about that?
Ooh, schools and airports.
Especially the airports part.
No.
Well, within schools, I don't feel like any person should be able to just walk in with concealed carry. Now, if they have trusted teachers or staff members that are trained, they have to go through many training courses, programs, and then have to be qualified. Also, then have to go through a bunch of checks.
Yeah.
To have armed, teachers and staff members within a school, I'm all in support of that.
Now, I hear a lot of people say, especially my mom says, we need to arm every teacher.
No.
Like,
There are several teachers who would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
Not just because, they don't have the capacity or they might be too old or don't know how to use it,
Yeah.
but a gun might genuinely scare them because they
Yeah.
might have a traumatic, experience with them. So, and also, within a situation, they might just be like, here, and give it to a student, which I know sounds really dumb, and I get that, but I mean, like, there might be a situation where they'd be too scared to use it and be like, here, you know what you do, you go shooting all the time, you take this and go stop it. Where if you have just certain individuals that can be trusted with them, then that can help, because you can't have a police officer, for a school, I'm sorry, like a school resource officer in every school.
I
Like, a lot of people,
kind of disagree there.
People we need to put,
Security guards?
not security guards per se, but like that, like high security measures, like security guards, like metal detectors, and like I know some schools already have metal detectors, but like those same people are also the same people who are walking around like, oh, this was like prison. Just wait till it actually feels like prison. Security guards are on every corner, metal detectors when you first walk in.
Right.
And the thing is my question is, the metal detectors going to be up all day? Are they going to be running, being checked every single day? 'Cause
That's not a very effective thing. Anyone who wants to get past it probably can.
Like,
School is not the most
Like if they put up metal
efficient
detectors-
place to keep everyone watch everyone, make sure they're doing everything right, because especially most of these things happen in not huge schools, but an average sized public school. It's not like a little tiny 100-student school.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a bigger school.
Like-
and in that type of school, with people going through the doors, everyone that is watching us, I at least hope, has seen a school before and see how many kids go in at the same time. They all just kind of rush in like a stampede. You're not gonna be able to make sure
Especially
every
when that
single
bell
one
rings.
has
The
all.
the
Yeah,
7:10 bell.
make sure that every single one, and also checking every single one of their bags. There's an easy way to get past. Now, I don't think it's a bad thing to have a metal
Yeah.
detector, but I don't think it's a foolproof.
No, no, no.
My, I think the best thing would be having a guard. I kind of disagree with teacher, because not only is that a lot on a teacher unless they're specifically have been in the military or a ex cop or something like that.
Yeah.
Ex-cop.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plot to a TV show on ABC.
Okay.
Ex-cop
Okay,
turned
okay,
teacher
so-
stops
so-
school shooter.
So
Do-do-do,
our
do-do-do.
school, we have multiple doors, like a lot of doors to get into that
True.
school.
And at certain points of time, they are all unlocked
Like,
because there's
after
extracurricular
school-
school like sports and other clubs.
There's
And
also,
also, someone could just let them in.
yeah.
It's not
Also,
that hard.
there's a weightlifting class, and we have a big area. We have a big building outside. Where
A
we
big
have
complex.
Yeah, we have a complex. We have a weight room and a turf area in there. And they do weightlifting in that. They do weightlifting class in there. So they go through, and instead of keeping the door unlocked, they prop it open.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of the teacher swiping, he just props it open. So that means during the day they can just come to that door. If they're a student there, they would know that more than likely if they've done
Yeah.
weightlifting.
Yeah.
Or if they've been in
know.
any sport, because that's what a lot of coaches do too.
Yeah.
Is they just prop it open.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do.
That's what we do in our
coaches
school.
do. So if they would be able to know. So metal detectors, I'm sure, and it's a little tiny door. I'm sure.
Right.
And nobody comes through it
Most
often,
schools
so,
have multiple doors.
Yeah.
I think that armed guard is the best.
We
I
don't
don't think
even have-
teachers is the greatest thing, because not only is it the fact of not many teachers, I think, should have that burden,
Yeah.
but also, of course, it's more they're not in this school in schools to just try and be there protecting the kids. Of course, that's one of their jobs, but their main thing is to teach the kids, and that would be kind of a deterrent, I feel like,
Yeah.
or a stumbling block to teachers that are trying to teach kids when they have a gun locked 10 feet away from them.
Yeah.
And if the kids find out about it, that could be a bad situation. If that could not help the teacher and also it could be a big thing on the teacher thinking that they might have to one day shoot one of their students, and also the fact of
But here's the thing.
that's a pretty hard
Well,
thing for
if you're
parents.
Shoot one
Let's talk
student,
about,
save a bunch of students.
Right, I
lives.
know,
I'm not
of
saying
course, I think they
security
would, but
but-
it's still hard for them to think. And also the fact of, think of the parents. If you're a student
Well,
at
okay.
a school, your parent isn't gonna, as a parent, if you're one of your parents aren't gonna be okay. A lot of them won't be okay with the fact that your teacher has a gun.
But
in your
that's not
classroom.
necessarily true.
Okay,
Many.
wait, can I-
Yeah.
I don't know,
Wait. Let's let
that's a
Jacob
big
speak.
thing.
So you're saying the emotional connection between security guard or between teacher and student.
Yeah.
Well, some people like to get become friends with even other people around the school. So security guard can be sitting around the corner. That person might talk to that security guard, and that security guard is the same person every single day. Some people try to become a little friendly with those people. Well, that might also become the same situation for that security guard, and also for the situation of how many security guards per school. Because a huge school, you're how many security guards do you want there?
I
A
don't-
small school,
I think you, even one, I think would legitimately probably two
Be a
would
deterrent.
be enough. Two would probably be enough.
Well, what if
Because
you
the
have
fact is that
1,000, 2,000 person school?
I don't
What are you supposed to do in
really
that
think about
situation?
the fact of it's a deterrent,
Mhm.
and if you're $1,000 or 1,000 people school, you probably have more money. And also the fact of if
We're
you-
about 1,000 person school.
Really?
Are
About
we?
800
I
2,000.
thought we were around just 600.
no, now that I think about it, yeah, he's
We
right.
have about 200 per people.
Oh, that's
But-
true.
The fact of it is the biggest thing that armed guard is a deterrent for one thing. Another thing is a quick call, because usually, of course, for your guys' school, it would be a lot different because it's down the road.
Yeah, one
police
thing that is
officer's down
very
the road.
fortunate that I find, that I've always felt safe about our school is that the sheriff's department is, in all honesty, about maybe 200 yards away from the school.
Not far at all.
Yeah, that 200. Yes.
And
200.
so
So I don't-
response time would not be that long. Now, yes, that would still mean that people would still get hurt and die.
Mhm.
But here's the thing: is
it won't last so.
it wouldn't be as bad. Now, yes, that's still a very bad thing to say. Like, oh, well, people are still gonna die. Well, yes, within situations like that, people are gonna die,
Yeah, I think.
or at least get hurt.
I think.
And that's the person, first shot they fire jams the gun, and they don't know how to clear it. Then you're gonna have a bunch of angry teens beating him up, and then the police are gonna have to stop them from killing that kid. But hey, that's just the thing that's always going on in my head.
Situation.
But okay, so here's the thing with giving arming teachers is if you're arming a teacher, not every school would have an armed teacher. And if you're arming your teachers, then you'd have signs posted saying that there are people armed on that premises. Also, if people want to enroll their child, they would know going in that hey, our teachers are armed. If you do not believe in that, then I'm sorry, but you'll have to find a new school because we're not going to change our ways. Also, teachers aren't just gonna be like, oh, hey, we think you could do it. You're gonna go through all the tests, and we're gonna make you. No, the teacher any of the teachers that want to do it would have to apply for it, and then go through the test to see if they could do it, and then also, go through training, extensive training, so they could use it efficiently and make sure that they should be allowed to do it. And then
Probably
yet
get
again,
paid to
you have to take
Yeah.
a whole They would get paid a little bit more because either if you're gonna make them supply their own firearm. In all honesty, you would rather want them.
Even if you didn't, they're still
Well,
doing extra
yeah.
work
It would be better for them
by
to
having that.
get their own because
They would.
if you just throw it on them, they're not going to feel comfortable. Maybe
Some people, they're comfortable with any gun.
Everybody will be comfortable with that exact firearm.
Because I know with me, I find a lot of joy in firing a Smith & Wesson M&P series, especially 40 or 9mm. I find a lot of comfort and enjoy. Glock goes around a lot of the same kind of, premise. And I mean, I guess, yes, Smith & Wesson did borrow a lot of ideas from the Glock pistol, but, we're not getting into that topic.
Right.
And,
definitely.
1911s are also nice, but for me,
Yeah.
I do not find a lot of joy in the SIG sour pistol. I find it a bit too bulky, and I do not find it just, to me, it's a little more awkward to hold it. So then, for a teacher to then be in a position to where it's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable shooting this gun because I'm not, yes, you get used to it after a while, but if you were to get your own kind of gun that you would, be more comfortable with, then yes, you would still need law enforcement to come, and then, there'd still be, legal actions took. But if you then have people already there who can, which yes, a security guard can do that, but I mean, all right, let's just have, let's just say for an 800-person school, maybe you have 4 security guards, 1 for every 200.
I think even 2 would be enough. That's
well,
what
no,
my
just-
school has,
Well,
and that's
okay.
I think that's definitely enough. The fact of it
Well-
not that you need enough to take on one kid. One security guard could probably take on the kid. It would
But-
probably be fine.
but-
But the fact of it is, it's a deterrent and also the response time. If they can stop the kid for enough to everyone else to get there, that's all they need.
I'd like to say something with your school. Your school is a very big school with very many buildings, and I know with the security, because my father is within second command of the security, and he talks about a lot how their radios are crap, that they have some of the worst radios they could have. They have a lot of crappy equipment. Also, they are not armed. Their job is literally to basically be a deterrent. If something actually happens, all their job is to do is to call the police and wait for them.
I did not know that they're
Yeah.
not armed.
They are not armed. They do not even have a baton.
Really?
They don't.
So, yeah, your security
Yeah.
guard is useless.
They're in all honesty.
Well, they do have a cop car parked.
No,
They-
no. You
Oh,
see,
the cop
here's
car,
here's the thing.
Do they have
Is
something in there?
okay. No. So they're
Really?
the vehicle that this is how bad. Okay. So you think that's the thing is your security force is used as a deterrent. My father talks a lot about how we have the most crappy stuff. Your law enforcement program academy has a lot better equipment than the security units do. Anytime they get a donated squad car from an old police agency, it goes straight to the criminal justice program. Now, if it instead does go to the security people, it's going to get stripped of most of the stuff it has. In all honesty, they said that they were lucky that they were even able to keep the spotlights on the sides of their Crown Vic.
Spotlight.
Because before it had a light bar on the top, and if you open the back trunk, it had the lights in there. And they said that would be really nice for when they're doing parking, especially at night and during the day, because it'd be a lot more visible than the black car they have with no lights besides the spotlight. Sorry.
They give them ambers, not red and blues.
Yeah, it would have to be
that's what I
Ambers.
thought.
But then another thing that they also hate is about their Crown Vic is that the heater and cooler in it does not work. And there's been several times to where when they are driving it, the door is actually opened on its own. Now they also have a Gator, John Deere kind of Gator, where
We also have John Deere's.
my father is telling me how one time he said this has happened to him 3 times where he'd be driving going around a corner of a building and the door would just swing open and it hit off and they'd have to have their auto people fix it. He says that it's a piece of crap too because their Crown Vic doesn't even start sometimes. So to have that in all honesty, the security force
But
at
it's
that
still
school
a
is
deterrent,
just
and it's a good deterrent. I thought they were armed.
yeah.
I thought they were both armed. I thought they had a gun in the car.
Nope.
That.
If you would,
I'll tell you this one. I never thought about shooting up the school.
I want you to take a minute. The next time you see one of the
There it
security
is.
guards, I want you to look at them and tell me what you see on their belt.
I
You're gonna
will
see a
look.
radio pouch.
I'll look at
That's
Paul.
it.
I'll be like,
That's all they.
I'll look.
And some of them don't even have a radio
Paul's
pouch.
not armed.
In all honesty, they are there to sit there to make sure no one breaks in, and if something happens, they are to call the authorities. That is their protocol. They are to be basically traffic cop.
Man, how
and
nice.
They are basically there to help
Definitely traffic
help
cops,
people
so much.
get to places, and also they are they are your frontline defense. They are at the booth there, and people pull up. They have to be like, oh hey, what's your business here? And tell them, and they'll be like,
Which I
okay, well
really
you go
like.
here. Which I also
That you
do
don't
like.
walk into the building in order to.
Yeah, no, you have to go through the guard
Like
shack
you're at
first.
school, you have to go into the building in order to
Talk
for
with
them to know
anyone
what
first.
your business is. You have to actually go into the building.
But to get in through our building, you also first have to go through an intercom system where there's a camera on you, and they have to be like, "Hey, what's your business here?" And be like, "Oh, I'm here for
you're
this,
right,
this,"
you're right.
and then you have to go through.
But it's
the
still
building.
not the best. It's still not the best.
No. Not
You
for
could-
students, I'm up a little late, they're like, hey.
You could say,
come on in.
it's- You're
Now,
right. Yeah.
One thing though, with another problem that security guards have though, is I don't know if during the school day if there's 2 there.
There is.
Okay, so there are 2 there.
Paul's
but I
always
know
at the guard shack, and then there's one.
Paul's
always walking
there?
around. What's wrong with Paul?
We're
No, I
no,
know.
there's-
Let's go
yeah,
later.
no. Paul's a good guy.
Paul's a good guy.
Anywho, so
Anywho.
hey, no. But the problem is then when it's not during the school year, they only have 1 guard there around the entire year. Also,
It's not the school year.
yeah, but no. Here's
So
another
it's
thing:
not really
is that
necessary.
at night there's only also 1 person there.
It's not
No,
school time.
But okay. So, but what about their lives? I mean, if someone then comes to rob the place, what if they start getting beat up or get killed?
Who?
Security guard.
Is he the only one there?
Besides the janitors that only come in for about 2 hours and then they leave, they're basically there alone, and they have to make sure that no one else is on the campus.
What is someone gonna break into the school for?
There's
There's
a
a lot of expensive stuff.
There is
and
a
I
lot
don't
of
go that
expensive
high.
Oh
equipment.
man, you're right. I didn't
Yeah.
think about that.
and
I
there's
was still thinking your guys' school.
there's
No,
still a
we
bunch
still
of
have expensive
vehicles.
stuff.
Yeah.
3D printers,
You have an
a
engineering
bunch
class.
of a bunch
So-
of computer.
You're right,
there's
you're
a lot
right.
of
Yeah.
stuff in there.
There's still quite a
But
bit. But then to say like, but
I
you
think
know,
that's
it's
a little
okay.
bit unrealistic to say that the guards are going to be in danger just watching, if anything.
Well, you could. There's still a possibility.
Let's look at Paul Blart Mall Cop for a
Okay,
second.
no,
Listen,
that's not how it works.
All right.
That was a joke.
Example A.
It's-
Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Oh yeah.
he had a little scooter, and they had better stuff than our security.
Put your left hand on your hip, makes it look like you have a gun.
That's probably what their security force is
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
do too.
Pretty
But yeah,
much.
But like in our school, we don't have multiple buildings except for the.
we just have a complex, and then
Yeah,
we
but-
have our main building.
But like.
But
what
also,
if,
the negative of that is if there's someone in the building.
but what if there's a situation
It's a little hard.
where
But you can
If
contain it.
Both
it's in
security
our
guards-
school,
What?
if there's someone in one building, you'll know whenever they leave that building. And I'm not sure. I think they can just lock them into the building, or lock them if they go outside of the one building. I think they can just lock them out.
Yeah,
so you
but
just stay in your building.
there's
what,
still a lot of people in one building.
And there's
like,
there's gonna be panic.
No,
there's
there's one
yeah,
huge building.
But then
So you're
there's going to
definitely
be
right. I
people who
definitely-
panic and try and get out, and then they can get in through there. They're also going to find some way to get in. Yes, they can be like, okay, well, I can't get in here easily. Let's move them on to the next building. Or they might just be like,
Windows.
screw it, shoot the window, move in.
yeah.
I mean, you're right, but at the same time,
I'm not
they have
trying to,
cameras,
like-
They have cameras on.
They do, but that
Glass.
okay. So there is an officer who sits is either a sheriff's department or it is a local cop who sits on a street that is adjacent to the street you need to pull on to get to that school. Now they're not always there, but there is quite a bit an officer sitting there because he's monitoring the highway there.
Yeah.
But if he's getting there, from my knowledge of protocol for law enforcement is they're not just going to run in by themselves. They are going to wait for backup.
Naturally.
Because if one officer gets there, you
No,
no.
If,
Here's the reason.
in a
Here's the
situation of
reason.
a school
Because
shooting, if
here's
it's one person with a gun, I understand that's still a big deal. And
It's
I know
still a
they
big
usually
deal.
would.
Yeah.
But if there's other people's lives in danger and they're in the middle of shooting people, I think they would. I think protocol would have them go in.
protocol would
I'm
be
pretty
that you
sure.
need to wait for backup, and because
No,
if,
I'm not sure about
Here's
that.
here's the reason. Because if they go rushing in, and then here's the problem is no matter how, like say he goes in and kills the guy, yay who, then his peers are gonna have his butt about oh, you should have waited for backup on this. And he's going to be like, well, there were people's lives on the line. And it's like, yeah, but what if you would have died?
Yeah.
Then right there, the guy would have had another firearm,
Yeah.
more ammunition, and then we'd have to be worrying about you, too.
Yeah. It's easier to be, when you think about a fight, it's easier to have 5 people on one person rather than one person on one person.
And this is why I'm also a
But
big
there
support
are
for...
Also, if you think about it, if we're going
It's
off
also
the...
a lot of people just dying.
If we're going off the AR-15 as the weapon of choice, usually the cop will either have a shotgun or a pistol, and at that point,
And there still are cases.
At that point, they're very outgunned.
There are still cases where I do believe that an officer would run in there to stop the threat, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying if they were to follow protocol, they would wait for backup.
Yeah.
But now most officers, because our officers are amazing throughout the entire country, not all of them,
I'm
but
not gonna-
what I'm talking about is all the good cops and officers who actually do their job for a reason, and the reason is to help and serve and protect their community.
Yeah.
They, when everyone else is running away from a problem, they're running towards it to help protect the people who are running, protect the people who are in that situation, and to help them. But they are to run in, and they would probably go in to stop the threat.
Yeah.
Except for the Parkland officers, apparently.
So, okay, we're not going to get into the Parkland officer because I will get more triggered than stay calm and, correct.
Okay, so when I brought like airport,
No,
why?
should not be able to have
Why?
guns.
Okay.
If you're
now-
thinking about no Russian, don't even go there.
No, I'm thinking concealed
I know,
Alright,
carry.
you got me there.
Concealed carry. Like, what if a pilot doesn't feel like? What if I want to be a pilot, but I don't want to.
On a plane? Are you talking about on a plane? No.
Are you
I-
talking about the crew?
Not on a plane.
Are you talking
Not
about
on a
crew and
plane.
staff members?
Yeah.
I think plane, not in the slightest. You should not be able to have a weapon on the plane in the
Why?
slightest. Because.
What
There-
about?
Not even the pilot.
Well,
no,
there-
no, pilot, yeah.
See, that's what
Oh,
I'm
I'm
trying to say.
no,
he's talking.
I
No,
was gonna say,
Regular civilians, no one, you should not be able to at all. If it's a
Why?
pilot, I think definitely there should be people on the plane with weapons,
Yeah.
just in case.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think regular civilians should be able to have it because
I
I
believe
think
in that
that's
too.
a little bit too much of a danger
Okay,
because
well,
the fact
people
that it's
don't
such a
like
small place that it's such a danger if you can
Yeah.
take
Yeah,
out a
I'm
pilot,
trying to-
everyone's gone.
See, okay, no.
Now, what if people are trying to conceal carry for their own safety?
Okay, so here's my belief on this: is you go to the airport, and you got to declare you have a firearm, and it's got to go into under storage, to where no one can get access to it. The reason being is because there's also an air marshal on planes now, who is armed. Well, if a situation happens, one person jumps up and tries to take over a plane. Well, then another person jumps up with a gun, and then the air marshal tries to respond. He's gonna have a hard time telling the good
Yeah.
guys from the bad guys. He's
Yeah,
then
that's-
if he shoots an innocent person, then it's gonna be like, well, you shot an innocent person, shame on you, brah brah brah. But
Yeah.
here's the problem: you can't tell who the good guys are from the bad guys. Taking down this is gonna sound very liberal, and this is not on me. But if you can put it to where you have your air marshal and your
Yeah.
crew members. Now, I'm not saying give all the flight attendants, a Glock or Smith and Wesson or something.
Yeah.
But if you have,
That's a good point. We should do that.
an air marshal, you got your air marshal on there, and then you have maybe, one of the pilots, or, really, no, if they want to have a gun, okay, but they don't need a gun because they're flying the plane.
Yeah.
They're not.
True. They just like
Well, you got
holding the plane.
Not exactly. They're not flying the plane the entire time. Most of
Cruise
the flight.
control.
Most of flight. I don't know if you know that. Anyway, most of the flight they're sitting there doing nothing except for radio, and that's not completely all the time. Sometimes they'll be flying and they'll fly over certain flights and they'll get a call, hey, go over to this thing, go over to New York Central, something like that. Go over to New York Center. But that's really all they do in the air.
If a pilot would want to carry a concealed carry,
Yeah.
I get that, and I'd be all for that. But I feel like it should be more to the air marshal, and then maybe.
Who actually runs air marshals? Is it the air? Is it the airline or is it the government?
I'm going to.
Because the government's kind of bad at things, so I'm not sure.
I don't know. I
I'm
mean,
kind
they
of-
set up a country, and they've been running a country.
Not
no,
greatly.
I
not
wouldn't,
greatly.
maybe not great,
A lot of
but
things.
I think they're doing a lot better job than you could.
Maybe Republicans.
I'm not like trying to jab at you for anything. I'm just saying, like, I feel like they're a little more qualified to run the country than you would be.
I don't know about
No,
that.
I'm saying that. Yeah, thank you, Jacob.
I don't
about
know.
that. Don't know about that.
Him, or people who've been elected and.
I mean,
I mean-
I'm not saying that he is qualified, but I'm trying to say
I'm
that
saying a lot of
everybody
other
up in
people
Washington,
are
D.C.
not qualified.
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that they're probably in a better position to handle it than he would
Nah,
be.
good, easy,
Remember, Donald Trump didn't have any political experience, but you know what?
Easy.
We're not gonna get
And
into
remember, this one's a Baptist. I
easy,
tried not to do
that.
that.
You just had to.
easy. I could do it easy.
Listen,
Are you sure about that?
if you would do
No.
that, you would make the Catholic Church